Senator Boysko can tell, I am fairly obsessive about the tax returns and matching that up with in-state tuition. The part that worries me is that claimed is in the past tense. If it was claims, I'd have no issue with it. But claimed is in the past tense, which gives the indication, like Senator Suderline said, that someone had formerly lived in or been domiciled in Virginia and then made a conscious choice to change their domicile and now wants to reach back to basically reclaim Virginia domicile. So that's my issue, that they're not currently claiming Virginia as their home state, but in the past they paid income tax. And if so, let's just be honest about it. They're not currently claiming it as a domicile, which would be an exception to how we currently treat in-state. That's my issue.
Senator Edwards, I'm going to hear from you, and then we're going to suspend on this bill until I get Senator Reeves here in the committee.
Yeah, Madam Chair.
And he's being called right now. Senator Edwards, and then we're going to suspend until Senator Reeves arrives, and we'll go to the next bill on Senator Locke's docket.
Madam Chair, when I was in the Marines, I claimed Virginia as my, quote, home of record the whole time, even though I spent a year in far Westpac, Western Pacific, a year in North Carolina, and some other places as well. But I always filed Virginia tax return because this was my home of record, even though I wasn't really living here most of the time.
Okay, we're going to suspend on this bill. We're going to suspend on this bill until Senator Reeves arrives. Senator Locke, if you would go to the next bill in your docket.
I will move on to Senate Bill 897. Senator DeStaff's bill, and I would, there is a substitute, and I would like to move the substitute.
There's a motion and a second that the substitute be agreed to. All in favor, please designate. Aye. Thank you so much. Senator Locke.
And this addresses governing boards in educational program. It requires that all members of governing boards of public institutions of higher education participate in educational programs designed to address the role, duties, and responsibilities of the governing boards at least once within the first 2 years of membership and at least once within every 2 years of membership thereafter. Under current law, new members are required to participate in such programs at least once during the first 2 years. The bill requires each public institution of higher education to maintain on its website the names of all voting members of the governing board who successfully completes these educational programs as certified by SHEV. And the subcommittee recommends reporting on a vote of 5-0, and I so move.
You've heard the motion, and there is a second and we are on 897, and we did already approve the substitute. So it is recommended that the bill be reported with the substitute. Please designate your preference by voting electronically.
Yeas 14, nays 0, abstention 0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Senator Locke?
For Senate Bill 898, the patron wanted this bill to be continued to 2021, and the subcommittee recommends that it be continued to 2021.
You've heard the motion, and there's a second that the bill be continued to 2021. Please vote electronically.
Yeas 15, nays 0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Senator Locke.
Senate Bill 935 is patroned by Senators Boysko and Hashmi. This bill deals with exemption from out-of-state tuition rates in public institutions of higher education in the Commonwealth. It permits an individual to be exempt from paying out-of-state tuition rates at public institutions of higher education if the student meets the following criteria: attended high school for at least 1 year in the Commonwealth and either graduated from a public or private high school or program of home instruction in the Commonwealth, or passed a high school equivalency examination approved by the Secretary of Education, and registers as an entering student or is enrolled in a public institution of higher education in the Commonwealth. The bill also provides that this exemption shall be available to students who meet the criteria regardless of their citizenship or immigration status. There is a substitute.
Yes.
And I move the substitute.
The substitute has been moved in second, and all in favor of that motion of approving the substitute, please vote electronically. No. Voice vote, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Senator Locke?
And I just explained what the substitute does.
Okay, and this is going to be re-referred to finance. I don't see anybody in queue. Senator Peterson, you just popped in queue. There was no name there.
Yes, the substitute clarifies that they have to pay 2 years of income taxes, which is pretty critical threshold, and I hope we can get the substitute distributed, because we just had this question about military families.
You have it in your package. I explained that at the
I'm
beginning of the
sorry.
meeting.
Is there.
Steve, what do you think? You're correct, Senator Peterson. The
Right.
substitute says 2 years.
So the substitute makes it 2 years, and it also is 2 years of income taxes. I don't have my glasses on. Right, and it's lines 39 through 51. Right, okay, just wanted to make that clear.
Senator Locke, would you please renew the motion?
I renew the motion. The committee recommends reporting the substitute, and the vote was 3 yeas, 2 nay.
Thank you, and this is going to go to finance. So there is a motion and a second that Senate Bill 935 be recommended for reporting with the substitute and be referred to Senate Finance.
Correct.
All in favor, please vote electronically.
I'm gonna go abstain, because I need to figure out how do they pay income
Yeas
taxes?
11, nays 3, abstentions 1.
Thank you.
I know, but how do you?
And the last bill in the subcommittee was Senator Stanley's bill, Senate Joint Resolution 25, and he requested that this bill be continued to 2021, and I so move.
There's a motion and a second that the bill be continued to the 2021 session. Please vote electronically. Madam Clerk?
Yeas 12, nays 0.
I'm gonna find.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Senator Locke, does that conclude your
That
report?
concludes my
Madam-
report.
Madam Chair,
They're
Senator Chair. Madam
Um,
Chair. Yes.
I don't have any names in queue, so I'm sorry if I didn't see you.
There.
Thank you. Senator Chafin?
Could we reconsider the vote by which 935 was passed?
There's a motion to reconsider the motion by which Senate Bill 935 was passed. All in favor, please vote electronically. Senator Chafin? Go back to Senator Locke, sorry. Senator Locke?
I renew the motion that Senate Bill 935 be reported and re-referred to Senate Finance.
You've heard the motion, second time, and a second from Senator Howe that the motion, that the bill be reported.
Yeas 9, nays 5, abstentions 1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Did Senator Reeves arrive? If not, we are going to move on to the next subcommittee report, and that's going to be Senator Lewis.
Yes, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, the Health Committee Subcommittee report. We met and considered Senate Bill 397, which was Senator Kiggin's bill. In its original form, Madam Chair and members of the committee, the bill set forth minimum staffing requirements for nursing homes in the Commonwealth. After testimony and presentation by Senator Kiggins, the subcommittee agreed in concept to a substitute, which made that a Section 1 bill, which would convene a work group under the Department of Health to consider staffing levels for nursing homes in the Commonwealth, with a report to the chairs of the health committees, health and education committees in both chambers by November 15th, 2020. That substitute is before you in your packet, and so I would move that substitute.
That you have heard the motion that the substitute be adopted. All in favor, please let it be known by saying aye or nay.
Aye.
Thank you. Senator
All right,
Lewis.
Madam Chair, with the substitute in front of us, I understand that Finance had, and I'm, look back to the Chair of Finance, Finance had originally requested this bill, but I'm not sure now that it's a Section 1 bill and directs a study whether that's necessary anymore or not, Madam Chair.
I don't know, but there's no harm in sending it up.
Okay. So my motion would be, Madam Chair, that we recommend, that we report the bill and re-refer to Finance.
It's a study, and it's a work group with stakeholders, there's no cost. Yeah.
I'll withdraw that motion then, Madam Chair. And the subcommittee recommended reporting that substitute 5-0, and I would recommend, or so move, that we report the substitute.
There's a motion that the substitute be reported. All in favor, please say aye or vote electronically.
Yeas 15, nays 0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Senator Lewis.
All right, Madam Chair, next we heard Senate Bill 564, which was Senator Edwards' bill regarding Virginia hearing loss identification and monitoring system. It expanded the responsibilities of the advisory committee of the Virginia hearing loss identification and monitoring system to include selecting language development milestones for educators and early intervention specialists. The bill requires the addition of at least 2 language experts to the advisory committee, and the bill also requires that children identified as deaf or hard of hearing in special education programs be evaluated yearly on the basis of the language development milestones established by the advisory committee. It also has become apparent to us this morning, Madam Chair, and I'll let Senator Edwards speak to that there are going to be some line amendments necessary to the
Right,
bill.
Senator Edwards, I'm going to call on you, but this has been requested by Finance.
And it has, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, the line amendment requested.
Senator Edwards, we can't hear you.
The line amendment requested by the superintendents this morning is to delete the new language on lines 20 through 23 because it violates federal law with regard to the IEP committees. And so I move that line amendment be adopted.
And you've heard the motion to approve the line amendment and the second. All in favor, please let it be known by saying aye or nay.
Aye.
Thank you. Senator Edwards, what further explanation?
No, with that, I recommend the bill be reported.
And I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the bill be
Oh,
reported.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, it needs to go to Finance.
Yeah.
Yes, it is, yes, it's been moved and seconded that the bill be reported and be referred to Senate Finance. All in favor, please vote electronically. Thank you. Senator Lewis?
Yeas
Madam-
14, nays 0, abstentions 1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Madam Chair, next we heard Senator McClellan's Senate Bill 712, and this requires employers defined in the bill to make reasonable accommodations for the known limitations of a person related to pregnancy, childbirth, or related medical conditions. The bill prohibits employers from taking any adverse action against an employee who requests or uses a reasonable accommodation and from denying employment or promotion opportunities to an otherwise qualified applicant. The bill also creates a cause of action against any employer who denies any of the rights afforded by the bill and permits the court to award compensatory, punitive, and other damages. There was a substitute, and I would move the substitute.
There is a motion to move the substitute
Second.
and a second. All in favor of approving the substitute, please let it be known by saying aye or nay.
Aye.
Thank you. Senator Lewis?
And Madam Chair, I would say that it was recommended that we report the bill with a substitute on 3 yeas and 2 abstentions. I would say, Madam Chair, that was also my intention to abstain as well, so that would have made it 3 abstentions, and just to call this bill to the attention of the committee. And I don't think Senator McClellan's here, so.
Thank you. Senator Peterson, you in queue?
Madam Chair, I'm just looking at this, and this is a pretty extraordinary mandate on businesses, which are already subject to the ADA, obviously. I'm just seeing this for the first time.
Madam Chair, I think it might be a good idea if Senator McClellan, if we could get her here to talk a little more in depth about the bill.
We will also suspend on this bill, and then and we will go back to Senator Reeves and Senator McClellan when they both appear. And so,
Next, Madam Chair, we considered Senator Deeds 738. And this, Madam Chair, dealt with temporary detention orders. And what it did, Madam Chair, was set forth that intoxication is included in the definition of mental or physical condition. And so that when a person presents with a TD or for treatment by a licensed physician and is unable to give informed consent, it makes clear that intoxication is included in one of those mental or physical conditions, and that upon a finding of probable cause, that a probable cause exists that a person is incapable of making or communicating informed consent because of one of those mental conditions, which now includes intoxications, and the standard of care calls for observation or treating within the next 24 hours to prevent injury or death. That was the gist of the substitute, Madam Chair, and I would move the substitute.
There is a motion and a second that the substitute be agreed to. All in favor, please let it be known by voice vote of aye or nay.
Aye.
Thank you.
Madam
Senator
Chair.
Lewis?
Madam Chair, I'd also point out that.
I'm sorry,
Oh, I'm
Senator,
sorry.
I see
I'm sorry, I
Senator
don't mean to
Donovan.
interrupt the report. Let Senator Lewis.
Yes,
I would just point out, it also requires, the substitute also requires the convening of a work group under the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Sciences.
thank you. Now in queue, Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would just like to say what a prudent bill this is. This has the potential to allow medical discretion to make sure that people are kept safe for short periods of time without having a full comprehensive TDO, which they don't actually need and they usually leave before the 72 hours are up. And this will take an enormous amount of stress and strain off of the TDO process that we have in our psychiatric hospitals now. So I just really wanted to speak to the bill since the patron is not here because it is going to serve the Commonwealth well, I believe.
Thank you, Senator Donovan. And this bill has been requested by Finance.
And I would move, Madam Chair, that we report, and it was the subcommittee's recommendation as well unanimously, that the bill, that the substitute be reported and also re-referred to Finance.
There is a motion
Second.
and a second that the bill be reported and referred to Finance. All in favor, please vote electronically. Madam Clerk?
Yeas 15, nays 0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And before we go on to the next bill, Senator
Senator McClellan's here.
McClellan is here, so we can go back to Senator McClellan's bill.
Good morning.
Okay, Senate Bill 712,
712, yes.
the questions of the committee.
Madam Chair,
Senator Peterson?
and I got to tell the good senator, I got a 9:30 conference call I got to jump on, but Senator McClellan, I'm just looking at your bill for causes of action for unlawful discrimination, and it talks about reasonable accommodation, which is access to a private location other than a bathroom for expressing breast milk, temporary transfer to a less strenuous position, job restructuring, modified work schedule, and all these other things, which would be a mandate basically on businesses that have 5 or more employees. Is that correct?
With the caveat that if it's an undue hardship, which is specified in some of the factors that would be considered for that, they do not have to provide it.
Okay, further question.
Senator Peterson?
Being the owner of a small business where my workforce is mostly women, and my wife and I own the business, and if, for example, if I have a receptionist and she's going to get pregnant and want to modify her work schedule, or if she wants to express her breast milk or bring the baby in, and I need to provide a private office for her because I have a conference room and offices.
You have to provide a private location for her to, if she needs to pump. So
Okay,
you need to provide a private location. It could be any room that you have that has a door that's not a bathroom that she could go in.
Okay, but further question, Madam Chair.
Senator Peterson?
If it's not an undue hardship.
Well, again, if you have a small office, you're only going to have but so many rooms. I would just tell you that, small businesses, you work with your employees and you accommodate these situations. And I just find this just,
So, Madam Chair, if I may.
it's just very overambitious.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Senator
So
McClellan, please.
this is very similar to legislation that was passed in 27 other states, including Kentucky and South Carolina. And with the first part of the bill, which would have the, what are they called? The Agency Division of Human Rights, I think is what they're called, would come up with guidelines, education, helping businesses understand what's a reasonable accommodation, what are these employees going to need, how can you provide that? And in those other states, they have found that particularly with small businesses who may not have to deal with this on a regular basis, who may not have in-house counsel or someone who can, an HR professional who can help them figure this out, they work with the division to help figure out what are we going to do in this situation. And that is actually reduced litigation because they have sort of somebody who can provide guidance. Now, I'm going to tell you, if you have a lactating mother, if she is going to need some place where she can pump that is not going to contaminate the milk, which is why we say no bathroom, and Usually, you can, either give her an office where just for 20 to 40 minutes, no one's going to barge in on her. If you find that's an undue hardship, you have nowhere to put her, then you all can work something out.
Okay.
But
Madam Chair, I apologize for,
Senator Peterson.
but I really need to leave in a moment. The problem that I have is, and I have no issue, I understand the issue, and I've had 4 children. My wife has been pregnant multiple times, and we've dealt with employees that have, but you have a cause of action talks about compensatory and punitive damages, reasonable attorney's fees, costs. I mean, you introduce a whole new cause of action.
yes,
And again, I mean, this is a situation that small businesses, you work with your employees to accommodate this, and I feel like you're coming down with a 500-pound hammer.
the states that have adopted similar legislation have found that it's actually reduced their litigation costs.
All right, I don't,
And in particular here,
I got you all in queue.
And the reason they found it's reduced their litigation costs is because it helps build the relationship between those small businesses and the the Department of Human Rights to help many of them figure out, how can we work this out? Here you have a choice between going to the division or filing a lawsuit. In discussing this with NFIB, they asked if there was a step process. If it makes you more comfortable, I would be happy to say, before you can bring a private cause of action, you have to go try to work this out with the division, rather than saying you could do either or. But I think this is a needed step to address workplace discrimination that many pregnant and lactating women continue to face, that has an impact on public health and on employer retention and productivity. And we are trying to address that in a similar way that 27 other states have done.
Madam Chairman.
In queue, Senator Donovan, and following you in queue is Senator Peake.
Thank you. I think this is a great example of a good idea that's gone too far. And I think what you express about developing guidelines for businesses to understand what accommodations might look like is very reasonable. Even putting in the code that reasonable accommodations that do not, whatever the language is it says in here, that do not affect the business activities is a reasonable general statement. I believe you have put the regs that you want to have developed into the code and made it a punitive action. And as somebody who makes sure pregnant women get accommodation at work every day, but also as a small business owner, this bill goes too far. And I think you're jeopardizing the opportunity to educate business with really good guidelines by creating a great big sledgehammer. And I can't support it that way.
In queue, Senator Peake, and then Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Questions for the patron?
Senator Peake, you have it.
Thank you. Senator McClellan, I'm looking specifically at lines 46 through 50 of the substitute, and the heading says unlawful discriminatory practice and gender discrimination defined. Then in that first paragraph, it mentions sex but not gender. Then at line 50, it says because of sex or gender, or on the basis of sex or gender. What is the difference in sex and gender?
That's current law. I can't answer as to why that was put in there.
Okay,
My bill does not address that.
doesn't have it. Bill mentions it, but,
I mean, it repeats what's current law.
all right, thank you. Madam Chair.
In queue, Madam Clerk, has the queue been refreshed because there are 4 names here?
Oh,
Okay, in queue, after Senator Peake was Senator Hashmi and then Senator Newman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to speak in support of the bill. I think this is a very important piece of legislation that's quite necessary. We can often say that employers and businesses are going to do the right thing, but we know that unless there are regulations in place, oftentimes that doesn't happen. For many decades, many businesses and many employers did not even provide restroom facilities for women. And it was the need for women to push at every level when they entered the workforce in large numbers to achieve the respect, the dignity, and the accommodations that they need. I have personal experiences of friends who have needed accommodations to support their expression of milk, breast milk for their babies. And even large employers have refused to provide those reasonable accommodations. We need to have legislation that supports the right of women so that they can take care of their personal needs and also support their families in the right way. So I hope that we will adopt this bill.
I agree. Okay.
Madam Chair.
Senator Newman?
Madam Chair, I think I agree with the senator who just spoke. But this bill, by prescription, just goes so much further. I mean, there's a rebuttable presumption. We watched that very carefully in Commerce and Labor, that it does not impose a hardship. This bill goes into the employee handbook. I don't remember us talking about what has to go into the employee handbook ever, to my knowledge. The punitive damages are tough. Senator, I don't know if this bill has to pass this week but I think, I think your intent is pretty good, but I think this bill goes too far, and it looks to be directed at small businesses. You have a very small service station or a one-room location. It's just, to me, it's a good idea, it just goes way too far.
Madam Chair, in the subcommittee, when concerns were raised about it being too prescriptive, I said I was willing to discuss amendments. So far, none have been brought to me except for one suggested by NFIB to date, to give them more time to put the poster up. But other than that, I've received no amendments. I'm willing to make amendments because I think this is a significant issue. Over 250,000 women have been denied workplace accommodations when they're pregnant or lactating. We have a significant number of women in Virginia who, with all due respect, they get a doctor's note and nothing happens. We need to provide some protections and some education in these areas. I am willing to work on this to make it more palatable, but this is something we've just got to address. I mean, you'd be surprised what I had to do to get somewhere to lactate in the General Assembly.
We're going to hear from Senator Lewis, and but before we do, Senator Howell and I both have a very personal story. Senator Howell, you want to tell it? You want me to tell it?
The chairwoman and I both arrived here in 1992, and at that point, there was no women's bathroom that a senator could use.
Yeah, there was down the hall.
Down the hall.
Down the hall.
We fixed it without this.
I would just say, until 2010, no one in the entire House of Delegates had ever thought of, what do we do if someone needs to pump? Even though we had lobbyists who were in that very situation every single day. So it affects everybody, and this is something we just got to address, and somehow, if you would like me to work on some amendments, go back to another meeting, I'd be happy to.
Senator McClellan, it sounds to me like that would be a good idea. Madam Clerk, could you please refresh my queue so I know I have speakers who'd like to make statements, but I'm not sure what order. Are they in order now? Okay. Senator Peake, Lewis, and Locke.
I'm sorry,
I'm just going by the queue. Lewis and Locke.
All right, Madam Chair, just real quickly, I understand
Okay.
fully what Senator McClellan is trying to do. She's done great work on this. It is a problem, and it needs to be addressed, and I think would be a very good idea if we did let it go by for a week so we could all kind of put our heads together on this. But also, it would also be helpful, I think, to know what some of these other 27 states have done and how your proposal falls in line with those.
It is very similar to South Carolina and Kentucky, which I believe are the most recent laws to pass. And I know this was heard in subcommittee. There are some advocates who, if you want to hear the stories they have, you can, or we can save that until we work on some amendments.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Senator Locke and then Senator Sasslaw. I'm following the cue board. Thank you.
Madam Chair, what I've heard is, it goes too far, it goes too far, it goes too far. What I have not heard are any suggestions for what is not too far, to Senator McClellan. But I will follow the subcommittee's, chair's
you want
suggestions in
suggestions,
terms
right?
of, you know, if we simply take it by for a week, maybe those people who are telling Senator McClellan it goes too far, can give her some suggestions in terms of what can make it better.
Sounds like a good idea. Senator Sasslaw, now you're next.
I would agree that you're going to need to do something. You know, the cause of action, I'm mostly out of the service station business. I had 8 or 9 at one time, and I just kept the last one that I built. It's a convenience store and car wash, and, you know, to be honest, I mean, and like I said, I've never encountered the problem. The only, thinking ahead, the only place in that convenience, the only place that lady could go would either be the walk-in refrigerator, which is 38 degrees, or the car wash. And I mean, I have no other place. And I mean, we're going to have to resolve, you know, this a little, make it a little clearer as to who, under what circumstances can you bring a cause of action or not, and who's liable. That's the problem that I have with this. I mean, what am I going to do?
Well, Senator McClellan has agreed to work with any interested parties. And I think if the bill goes by for a week, you need to make your intentions known by contacting Senator McClellan. And we'll work through it for the next week. So we will carry your bill over until next week.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And that you already did the other one.
Yes, you're good on that one.
All right, thank you, Madam.
You're welcome. Thank you. Senator Lewis.
Yes, Madam Chair. Back to the subcommittee report. Senate Bill 739 was also Senator Deeds' bill. In its original form, it was much more ambitious in regards to the acute psychiatric bed registry. But there was a substitute offered which turned it into a Section 1 bill for the Department of Behavioral Health to establish a work group with stakeholders to evaluate the role of the psychiatric bed registry and to make recommendations for statutory, budgetary, or other actions necessary to redefine the purpose of the registry and to improve its structure and effectiveness, with that work group to report back by November 1st of 2020. And so it was the recommendation of the subcommittee that we report the first, let me move the substitute, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you. There's a motion to approve the substitute. All in favor, please designate by sign of aye or nay.
Aye.
Ayes have it. The substitute is agreed to.
And it was
Senator Lewis.
unanimous recommendation of the subcommittee that the substitute be reported and re-referred to finance.
Madam Chair.
Senator Newman.
Senator Lewis, trying to go through it. Are we just going to get the information ahead of time before we set up the requirements with the substitute, or are we going to move forward with the requirements and then get data from the study group, work group?
My understanding, Senator Newman, was that we were just establishing the work group, if I'm reading the Section 1 substitute correctly.
Madam Chair,
Senator Newman.
could staff confirm that that is what we are doing?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Senator Lewis, you just made a motion that the bill be reported with the substitute be reported and be referred to finance?
And I will say again, Madam Chair, finance, I think one of the original bill now that's a Section 1 study, I don't know that I don't know how necessary that is.
Chair of Finance will respond.
I don't believe it needs to go to finance. That's my opinion.
So I would just recommend reporting the substitute then.
Okay, you've heard the motion. The motion is that the Senate Bill 739 be reported with the substitute. All in favor, please designate on electronic voting. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Yeas 15, nays 0.
And Senator Lewis, I know you have one more bill, but Senator Reeves has arrived, and so Senator Reeves, if you can come to the microphone, there are some questions by members of the committee, and Senator Peterson has already gone, so there'll be one less ball you'll have to volley, but who, I'm sorry, but I think two of the people who had a question might be gone. So are the questions of the speaker? And Senator Suderline, as I recall, you had questions.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. So my understanding is these are folks, military service members that were former Virginians.
No, they're still Virginians.
Well, why would they not be eligible for in-state tuition then?
Because we don't allow them to do that. What happens, does everybody understand what happens when you get activated and go on active duty? Let's say you graduate from VMI or Tech, go through the Corps, and you get commissioned as an officer. This is what happens.
I mean, your domicile is wherever you choose.
It follows you wherever you are. Now, you have the opportunity to change residencies depending on where you're stationed, but you always have that home of record, right? For me, Texas was home of record. It's where I entered service. When I went to Fort Carson or Florida or Georgia, I had the opportunity to change residencies, but I did not. So I kept my Texas plates and I paid taxes in Texas. And so if I can give you a little background about how this works. So I have a constituent who did 27 years active duty. They're a VMI graduate, retired as a colonel. They always tried to get back to Virginia, to the Pentagon or to one of our posts here. Closest they got was the War College in PA. So for 27 years, they paid Virginia taxes. They kept Virginia plates on their car. And when it came time for their kids to want to apply to schools, they wanted to apply to Virginia schools, but they didn't have in-state tuition. So this bill just simply says, if when you sign up for the military and you're coming out of Virginia, which we graduate a lot of officers and enlisted out of here, and you've paid at least 10 years of taxes during your active duty time, and you've claimed Virginia as your residence, then your kids will be eligible for in-state tuition. That's simply as I can put it.
Yeah, let me pull up the text again. As Senator Peterson, who expressed similar concern, in the bill it appears that it's past tense. So who claimed Virginia as his home state and filed Virginia tax returns for at least 10 years.
That's when you first enter service. Claimed as.
But I think what the concern Senator Peterson and I have expressed is we want to make sure that these folks, I think that we're talking about different issues. We want to make sure that they're currently Virginia taxpayers. Because our concern is if someone was previously a Virginian or Virginia resident paying Virginia taxes, they go to Texas, Florida, Tennessee, another state that they're stationed there that does not have state income taxes. They claim residency there. They keep that residency until the time that their children want to enroll in Virginia colleges.
Remember, Madam Chair, they have to have 10 years. Normal military service is a 20-year career. So in this case, my case, they did 27 years. They located all over the place, paid the whole time they were here. So when I say claim, now he's no longer on active duty, but he did all his time on active duty. And his kids are getting to the age where they're, going to college. Now his last one's about to apply. They've applied to UVA and they applied to Tech, but he's going to have out-of-state tuition.
Right.
And so that's why the word claimed is in there.
But I think that what Senator Peterson and I are expressing is someone that's a 22-year-old or 18-year-old joins the military for the first 10 years at a lower tax burden. They continue to be a Virginian for tax purposes. They then get stationed in Florida or Tennessee, Texas, or another state that lacks income tax. They switch their residency to that state. They continue going up the ranks and having what would be a higher state income tax burden, but they are not paying Virginia state income tax anymore. They're now approximately 36, at least minimum 36, the 18 to 18, presumably, military. And then at that point, so it's been several years later, then they're trying to get in-state tuition. That's what Senator Peterson and I are talking about.
But did they originally claim Virginia as their home of record when they entered service? That's the question. If
Right, they did
Virginia,
earlier, and then they stopped paying Virginia income tax.
If they claimed Virginia as their home of record when they entered service, and they've paid 10 years of taxes, and they moved to Fort Sam Houston, and they decide, well, I'm going to become a Texan now.
Right.
But they've paid their 10 years and they entered service then then this bill would apply to them.
Right, but they haven't paid likely for several years. No, they haven't paid for the most recent several years, just based on the age of when children would be entering college. Is that correct?
According to the bill, yes.
Okay, that's the concern that Sarah Peterson and I were expressing. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Senator Newman is next in
could
queue.
this bill go by for the week? I think we can work on something that gets us closer, but I don't want to see it go down because of the concerns. I would ask that the bill go by for the week.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, I'd be happy to do that, and I appreciate Senator Newman's comments, but I sat in subcommittee and I listened to where we were going to take care of Dreamers and give them in-state tuition without any service to their country, signing up and those sort of things. So this is a policy decision whether or not we're going to take care of those who have signed up and said, hey, I'm going to protect our country, and I'm going to let the military move me all over God's forsaken land in the foreign countries. There has to be something we do for these folks if they're going to do that. Otherwise, we're going to lose so many people to Texas, Tennessee, and Florida. Why pay taxes? What's the benefit for me to stay as a Virginian on active duty when I go on active duty? What's the benefit to me? If I know I'm going to Fort Sam Houston, or if I'm going to Fort Hood, or if I'm going to Florida to fly aircraft, I'm not going to do it. And so we're trying to hold on to our veterans as best we can. We're short on our guardsmen. We can't recruit them. This is another recruiting and retaining for those folks that have signed up for military service. So, I mean, I understand where Senator Sutherland's coming from, but from my position, these are folks who have taken that oath, who said, we're going to go do it. I want to stay as a Virginian. I'm a Virginian. I'm a Hokie, or I'm a VMI guy. I love Virginia, and I'm going to continue to pay those taxes, because there are other states where they are more beneficial for people to do that. But these folks have decided to stay as Virginians. So I'd be happy to take it by if Senator Newman wants to help me try to wordsmith it a little bit better to resolve your concerns. But I just don't know. This is a policy decision that we need to understand that it has severe ramifications with regard to the optics of what we're saying to those folks who serve in uniform.
Senator Reeves, Senator Edwards, and then I'd like to make a statement before we move that the bill go by for a week. Senator Edwards?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think this is a good bill. I don't see any problem with it. I don't see what people are doing picking at it, and we ought to go ahead and get it out of here.
Well, and Senator Heisman, I'm going to come to you in just a second, but I want to apologize to Senator Reeves, because last night when you sent me a text message and I was still sitting in the subcommittee with Senator Edwards, we didn't get out of here until I felt like midnight, but it was not quite that late, which is the reason why my throat was like it is this morning.
Madam
But
Chair?
I apologize because I sent you a text message telling you that I thought the bill was okay, because I saw that the recommendation was 5-0 and that it had been recommended for reporting. So I'm sorry if it appeared that I misled you, but I was just going by what
No,
I
ma'am,
saw in the report.
You know me.
Well, I sent you the text message and it was late, so I'm sorry. I'd like now to hear from Senator Hashmi.
I just wanted to express again, as a member of the subcommittee, that I do support the bill. I think it is an effective bill, and it legitimately supports our veterans and supports our military active duty individuals and their families. I don't want to conflate this particular bill with the bill that was recently passed for supporting our undocumented individuals who also are Virginia residents and who have also paid taxes here. I think we can serve both populations and we can serve them effectively, and I think we need to support the educational opportunities for all Virginians. So thank you, Senator Reeves.
Thank you, Senator Reeves. This bill will go by for the week, and interested members of the committee will get with you and help you tweak your language. I guess that, I don't
Yes,
know whether I
ma'am.
should say tweak or not, but work out some compromises.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. Back to you, Senator Lewis. I think you have,
I've got
One
a
more
few
bill?
more. I think I've got a few more, Madam Chair.
yes, go right ahead.
Senate Bill 863, Madam Chair, was Senator Pillion's bill. That dealt with some property out in Southwest Virginia, specifically the Southwestern Virginia Mental Health Institute, and allowed them to lease a portion of that property to Smith County for a term of 3 years, and there was no opposition to the bill. So it was our unanimous recommendation that the bill recommend reporting to the bill and be re-referred to finance, and so I would so move, Madam Chair.
Second. Second.
I'm sorry, it was my mic that time, I'm so sorry. There's a motion and a second that the bill be reported and re-referred to finance. All in favor of that motion, please let it be known electronically. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Yeas 15, nays 0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Back to you, Senator Lewis.
And next, Madam Chair, we consider Senate Bill 864, also Senator Pillion's bill, which dealt with the comprehensive harm reduction programs. That bill repealed the sunset on programs established in 2017 that allowed the Commissioner of Health to establish and operate local or regional harm reduction programs that include a provision for distribution of sterile hypodermic needles and syringes and the disposal of of hypodermic needles and syringes. There's testimony at the subcommittee about how effective these programs were, and there was no opposition to this bill, and it was the recommendation unanimously of the subcommittee that the committee report, and so I would so move.
There's a motion and a second that the bill be reported. All in favor, please vote electronically. Madam Clerk.
Yeas 15, nays 0.
Thank you, ma'am. Senator Lewis.
Madam Chair, the next bill we took up in the subcommittee was Senator Locke's 946, State Plan for Medical Assistance regarding doulas, which forced me to go to Merriam-Webster Dictionary and look up what a doula was. It directs the Board of Medical Assistance Services to amend the State Plan for Medical Assistance Services to include a provision for the payment of medical assistance for antepartum, intrapartum, and postpartum services provided to a pregnant person by a doula, including services for labor and delivery, support, and at least 4 visits during the period and 7 visits during the postpartum period. Also directed a rate study be determined to determine the appropriate reimbursement rate and to report back to the Assembly by December 1st, 2020. It was the recommendation of the subcommittee 5-0 that the committee report, and so I would so move.
Yes, sir, and also Senate Finance has asked for this bill, so.
Didn't have that on my list, Madam Chair, sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
So I would report and re-refer to finance.
Okay, there is a motion and a second by Senator Locke that Senate Bill 946 be reported and be referred to Senate Finance. All in favor of that motion? Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll vote electronically. Madam Clerk?
Yeas 15, nays 0.
And next, Madam Chair, we took up Senator Locke's Senate Bill 993 regarding who may serve as state health commissioner and also local health directors. And essentially what the bill, and there's a substitute. Let me move the substitute first.
There's a motion to move the substitute. Senator Locke seconds. So all in favor of the substitute being approved, please vote aye. Aye. Nays have the same right?
And so Senator Locke's bill, the substitute for Senator Locke's bill simply set forth that the state health commissioner and local health directors can also are qualified if they possess a doctor of public health degree, a master of public health degree, or a doctoral degree in the area of public health. And so it was the recommendation that the bill be reported, or that the substitute be reported on a vote of three ayes and 2 abstentions. And so I would so move the substitute, that the substitute be reported.
Okay, the motion is that the substitute be agreed to.
You did that.
The motion is that the bill be reported, the substitute be reported.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is an electronic vote. All in favor of that motion? Thank you. Senator
Yeas
Lewis
15,
appears.
nays 0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Senator Lewis appears, did you have?
One more.
One more bill?
And one more, Madam Chair. We took up Senator Deeds' Senate Bill 1046. And Madam Chair, members of the committee, Senate Bill 1046 adds clinical social workers to the list of eligible providers that includes treating physicians and clinical psychologists who can disclose or recommend the withholding of patient records. And it was and provide recommendations on involuntary temporary detention orders. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. It was the recommendation 5-0 that the bill be reported, and so I so move.
There is a motion that the bill be reported and a second. All in favor of that motion, please designate on the electronic voting board. Madam Clerk? Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Yeas 15, nays 0.
And that completes my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Lewis, and thank you all members of the subcommittees, all the
Madam
subcommittee
Chairman.
chairs.
I'm so sorry.
Senator Donovan, I'm sorry, I didn't see a name in queue.
I didn't. I'm a bad cuer. I am.
Okay.
having voted on the prevailing side by which we passed Senate Bill 270, could we reconsider that vote?
270, which page is that?
It was in Senator Barker's report, I believe.
Senator Bales, Senate Bill 270.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh. Page 5. It's been moved and seconded that the bill be, that we reconsider the vote by which that bill was passed. All in favor vote electronically. Senator Donovan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted the opportunity to dissent on this. I'd like, there's some conversations I need to have going forward as we move between the original bill and the amendment. There were a couple of concerns I had, and I just want to make sure we have the opportunity to talk about it on the floor. So, thank you. So, and that's just my reasoning, Madam Chairman.
Senator Newman?
Madam Chair, I think we heard this, and Senator Barker did a great job. The bill does something other than what we heard, which is exposes the names of those companies that manufacture certain products in certain cases. I didn't hear that before, and to expose the names of the pharmacies that make certain products is new. And so I know that some would be in favor of that, but I did not hear that here or there. So I think that's kind of the problem.
You've expressed your concern, so now we're going to reconsider. We've already reconsidered the vote. So now we need to cast a new vote. So please make a motion.
I move Senate Bill 264 be reported.
270.
Sorry, 270.
Okay, there's a motion and a second that Senate Bill 270 be reported. All in favor, please let it be known electronically. Thank you so much.
Yeas 11, nays 3, abstentions 1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Senator Lewis, that completes your report.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Madam Clerk, just a point of clarification, Senate Bill 635, Senator Serval. Okay, that's what I thought. At the request of the patron, Senate Bill 635 will be stricken from the docket.
You got to vote.
Yes. Okay?
Yeas 15, nays 0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, committee chairs. Are there other bills that we need to take up today? I don't see there. We're done. So if all minds are clear, committee will rise.